right, so we've got a room full of professionals and business owners and government officials and everybody else all here at Old Salem this morning. And my name is Algenon. I am the Managing Director of Wharton Gladden Company. And for those of you all that do not know who we are a boutique real estate investment banking firm based out of Greensboro that services the entire state of North Carolina, but specifically here in the Piedmont Triad. And on behalf of many different people, I just want to welcome you here to Old Salem. I know how difficult it was for some of you all to get from across the street, so we appreciate you getting here early and joining us for what we think is going to be a terrific program. So again, thank you all. Before we kick into the program, I just want to highlight a few things. You know, I was born here in Winston-Salem, actually in East Winston-Salem, right off Liberty Street. I went to elementary school in Louisville. I went to high school in Clemens. And I went to college in Raleigh at NC State. I started an investment bank. You said woo-woo, right? I started an investment bank in Greensboro, and I live in Kernersville. And I share all that. I share all that because I am certainly not only someone that believes and talks a lot about regionalism, I'm someone that practices it. I firmly believe we have a great region, and I stress that region. We have a great state here in North Carolina. Not too many other places in the world where you can be at the mountains in 3 hours and then be at the beach in another 3 hours, depending on what direction you want to go. And I think that when we operate as a region, when we ignore some of the invisible lines that sometimes divide us, we become a lot stronger, and each one of our individual communities become a lot stronger. We are considerably blessed here in the Piedmont Triad simply because we do have 3 distinct communities that do have distinct identities of their own. And that is a blessing that we have great communities like High Point and Greensboro and Winston-Salem, and certainly even Kernersville and Burlington as well, rounding out the Triad. But again, when we work together as a unit, when we work together as a region, that's how we're going to attract the companies that we need to grow. That's how we're going to create the jobs to put our citizens back to work. And that's how we're going to invest in education, housing, and transportation to create the kind of quality of life that we need here in this region. So again, I want to ask this quick question. How many people here from Greensboro? All right. What about Winston? Oh, High Point. A few people. Kernersville? A few people. Burlington? And 1 person. All right, so this is a truly diverse crowd. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, we've got a very nice program planned for you. Just a couple of things to keep in mind as we kick into the program, especially when we have the panel discussion. If you look on your table, you should see a 3x5 index card. If there are questions that you want to ask to the panelists, please go ahead and write those questions down. If you look at your program, it'll give you some idea of what the program is going to look like this morning and what we're going to be talking about in some of the panel discussions. But at any point in time, you can write your questions on that 3x5 card, and during one of the breaks, you can give it to one of the gentlemen with part or young ladies with part, and they will make sure that your question gets asked. If you're able to take up the 3x5 cards, can you wave your hand so people sort of know who you are? I know Mark Kersler's down here in the front. You can't miss Mark with that tie on. Mark, stand up so they can see the tie. Just look for the tie. Okay, there you go. You got questions, get it to Mark. Anybody else can take questions? All right, so make sure you write your questions down on that 3x5 card. Also, if you have any comments as it relates to some of the posters that you see around the room, you can write those down on Post-it notes and stick it to the actual board. So make sure you take a moment and go look at some of the posters they have in the room and that talks about the Sustainable Communities Plan and some other things. So please do that. Also want to make sure that we recognize any elected officials that may be here with us. I do believe we have Ms. Lynn Rumley, who's the mayor of Coolumee. She could raise her hand. Very good. We also have Mr. Larry Williams, who's the mayor of Rural Hall, if he'll raise his hand. Thank you. And we also have Mr. Robert Keisley, who's a Town of Ramseur commissioner, if he'll raise his hand. All right, very good. We really appreciate our elected officials being here. We've also got who I consider some special people in the room. They're not elected officials, but I think they do as much work as elected officials. We've got Michael Suggs, who's the chairman of the Kohler Community Development Corporation, who has been doing tremendous work here in downtown Winston-Salem for many, many years. We also have Mr. Lou Baldwin, who is the president of the State Realtors Association. He's here as well. He does tremendous work throughout our region, and certainly appreciate those two gentlemen. If you are a public administrator, if you work at the city, county level, if you could raise your hand and maybe stand up as well. All right, very good. Let's give all of our elected officials, community leaders, and public administration leaders a big round of applause. Certainly without these ladies and gentlemen, we would not have the type of quality of life and the type of community that we have here if these folks didn't go to work and do the things that they do every day. Now, I've got the great pleasure of introducing another elected official. I first got to know this gentleman many years ago right here in the city of Winston-Salem. He is certainly someone that not only talks about regionalism, but he also champions regionalism throughout our region. And he's someone that I have a deep amount of respect for and someone I look up to a tremendous amount. So if you can, big round of applause for the City of Winston-Salem Mayor, Allan.
Change Algenon's name to Mr. Triad there, looking all over. But it is my honor to be here today just to welcome you to this Livable Communities continuing discussion, and what a great setting for this here at Old Salem, just with our strollway just behind, and a great place to, in a fall morning. I want to welcome Dr. Nelson here for, look forward to his remarks, and to all of you, I'm just delighted to have you here in Winston-Salem. Important work that we're doing here today, that we think about ourselves as a region, because as Algenon was talking about, this morning 50,000 people got up, got in their car and drove into Forsyth County. Over in Guilford County, I think there's about 80,000 people drove into Guilford County. So we've got so much interaction that's going on throughout our region. But it's tough times for us. You know, the Triad region has had some very difficult times recently. We've lost about 85,000 jobs over the last 15 to 20 years. And David Powell uses this analogy, which I think hits us right perfectly. If you think about Research Triangle Park down in the Durham-Raleigh area, it's just like that going away overnight, basically. That's what's happened to us here in the Triad area. But it's a crisis situation. If you think about, though, that if you look at the Chinese word for crisis, it uses two symbols. One is danger, and one is opportunity. So that's what we need to look at here in the Triad. We've got to face the danger coming right at us, but also look at those opportunities that we have before us. Because we do have tremendously high quality of life. You see the recognitions that's happened to us. Winston was named last week as one of the number 6 best city to retire in the country. Both Greensboro and Winston-Salem were named in the top 50 cities in the country, which makes it really, really cool. Wendell Holmes said one time that sometimes we sail with the wind, sometimes we have to sail against the wind, but what we should never do is just lay at anchor. So here in the Triad, we cannot just lay at anchor. We've got to continue to work, push forward, and promote the variety of areas that we have in this Triad region, our 12-county region. Great rural-urban symbiotic relationship. Great example of that is every Saturday morning, just a couple blocks from here, actually just across the street, is the Cobblestone Market. We have vendors and growers from all over the Triad that come into this urban area and sell their wonderful fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. So I'm glad you're here. It shows the commitment to this process as we go forward, and it shows that it's something we've got to continue to do. One of my favorite quotes that John Kennedy used in his first inaugural address, you might recall this, when he said that he talked about the new frontier that he was bringing forward. He said, all this will not be completed in the first 100 days. It will be completed in the first 1,000 days. Probably won't be completed in this life of this administration, and perhaps not even in our lifetime that we are on this planet. But let us begin the process. So we're a little bit farther than just beginning with this process, but I urge you to continue your discussions. It's important work we do for the future of our community. Thank you.